Hey guys, what's up? What's going on? Denny coming back at you with another video. Drop a like, drop a comment, subscribe to the channel. Thought that was funny. That's like a cliche now, the Hey Guys video. I guess there's like millions of videos that start with Hey Guys and then they go into their thing. Kind of cliche. Just thought I'd try it out. I guess I'm not really a Hey Guys channel, but I am Denny and I am back with another episode, another video for your viewing pleasure. Back at home once again, just chilling here. It is Wednesday, aka hump day, and I hope at least some of you did some humping or humping around. Remember that Bobby Brown song? Actually, I might mention Bobby Brown later in this video, coincidentally. Ain't nobody humping around these days. Less and less of us guys are getting laid, and that's what this video is kind of about, and I touched on this in other videos, but yeah, I don't know exactly where I'm gonna go with this, but I have kind of a general idea. But once again, hope you're doing well out there. And thank you, first of all, for the new subscribers. Welcome aboard. Glad to have you subscribe and watch some of the videos. Go back into the catalog and see if there's anything that tickles your fancy. And feel free to watch it and leave a like and comment even on some of the older videos. Because a lot of the content is... it's not so much current events, it's just like general lifestyle stuff. I just share some experiences that maybe can help you in general, especially as a bachelor, as a guy in his 40s or even older. So yeah, thanks again. We're over 850 and I'm hoping to get to 1,000 if this chair would work. The hydraulics are a bit messed up. But yeah, I am in my mid 40s now, and I actually, earlier today, I was looking at recipes and how to make beef bone broth. And I was also checking out prices for beef liver supplements. I guess I'm at that age now where I'm looking at how to make bone broth. Because I guess, like you get older and from the research I've been doing, your metabolism changes, you don't absorb the nutrients from the food, especially our food supply is depleted, along with other stress factors and environmental factors. We're not getting the nutrients we need, and one of the best ways is to extract it from bones, and as well as the nutrients in stuff like beef liver, and then just generally trying to eat more organic fruits and vegetables and some other vitamin supplements like magnesium and zinc, things like that, along with exercise to help you process things and hopefully live a healthier life in general. But yeah, today talk a little bit about being sexually confused. I am Gen X, barely. Like I mentioned in the last video, I could be a millennial. I'm right on that line. I can go either way, jump off either side of the fence, and it wouldn't really matter. I mean, I don't really look like Gen X. I look a little bit younger than my age, but I am in my 40s. And what's interesting about being in basically Gen X is I believe we were the first generation, and I'm definitely a part of that was maybe sexually confused. Now, I don't want to get that mixed up with confused about your sexuality or sexual orientation. I'm not talking about that. I have no confusion about that. I am straight, and no doubt about it. So I'm not confused uh, in that regard. Never was. I always had the butterflies the first time I laid eyes on a pretty girl in grade school, and never felt that way about a man before. So, I mean, even if I was gay, I mean, so what? Who gives a shit, right? Um, but I'm not, and as a straight guy, and actually, it'd be easier if I was maybe gay or bisexual. It'd be a little bit easier out there in the. There'd be a bigger market. I'd have be able to have a bigger tent to include more people and have more fun times. But that's not the case. I do only get nude around other women, as long as they're consenting, of course. But yeah, that distinction, sexually confused. What I mean is, you know, and this is my experience for sure, and probably a lot of you watching, is Gen X. We were possibly the first generation to be exposed to like pornography, and I don't know if you're allowed to say that on YouTube. I mean, my channel's not monetized yet, but this video may, I don't know, maybe some of you could let me know, is that word even allowed? I didn't even check like what the no words are on YouTube. Pornography, but maybe I'll just call it adult content, explicit, triple X rated, whatever you want to call it. Growing up, I was unfortunately exposed to that stuff at a young age. I won't get into how. Let's just say I stumbled upon it, and then also, I know a lot of you guys growing up in your peer group, in your teens, you already start getting those hormones going, and you're talking about this kind of stuff, and somebody's dad always has their stash of VHS tapes that you discover, or Betamax tapes in my case. And I was exposed to that at a way, like an age that I shouldn't have been, for better or for worse. I don't know if it prepared me earlier for the world that was to come, or if it had damaged me. It possibly could have damaged me, because even though I was exposed to that stuff at an early age, I still didn't really lose my virginity till around the age of 30. You could say 30. I can't, well, I'll get into that in maybe the next video, the specifics, because I sort of lost it before that, like a couple of years. Yeah, I'll keep you guessing on that one, but safe to say around 30 years old, I finally got laid, as they say, which was another interesting story that I will share coming up in then maybe the next video. But where the sexual confusion comes in with my generation is, I believe the boomers, when they grew up, a lot of that stuff like wasn't really that readily available, like the smut, the adult content. I mean, it was to some degree. They had like, there were no VHS tapes when boomers were in their teens, in like the early, mid, even late 60s, I don't believe. To watch smut, you had to go to a adult theater, an X-rated theater, and not every city even had that. I know Middle America, and probably most of America at the time, was very conservative, and those things didn't even exist. You had to be in like New York City, basically, or maybe places like Philadelphia or Los Angeles, and places like that were, San Francisco definitely, were more liberal, and they were, that type of stuff was an option there. There was a lot of prostitution and shady stuff and pimps and drug dealers and pimps and hoes and big pimp and spending G's. So there's all that seedy kind of New York City dark underbelly stuff in a bunch of cities, and I'm sure it existed in Canada as well, in some of the bigger cities here. I'm in Canada if you're new to the channel, Alberta. But it was a lot more difficult, I think, for the generation before me. So they weren't really exposed to that stuff that would cause them any type of confusion. Now sex itself is pretty like innate. It's kind of just something we're programmed and born to do. It's in our DNA, so we don't really need an instruction manual. I'm pretty convinced that, like, if I had never seen a piece of pornography or a love scene in a movie, or even had an elementary school, or whenever we first learned about the birds and the bees, and if my mom didn't tell me about it, I think eventually you still would have figured it out. You kind of just know where things go and how to do things. It's just kind of nature. I don't think, like, when you see two dogs humping, it's not like they learned that from watching somebody. I don't think so. There were no Betamax tapes for them at the dog park or out in the wilderness. But yeah, it's just nature. That's what we're here to do, is to reproduce. And yeah, and then, with society the way it is and it becoming more difficult, I think that's the root of a lot of problems. Men not having access to sex and sex being difficult to get. I think that's damaging to the male psyche, and then as a result damaging to society. And feminism has brainwashed a lot of women into ignoring most men these days, and that now we have what we have. But that's besides the point. That's another topic that's adjacent to what I'm talking about here. But it's the idea of sexually confused again. Where the mixed messaging was growing up in my time as a young man, like I mentioned, the smut videos and magazines that me and my peers as teens would get into, and we'd see this stuff, and then we thought that's what sex was, and that's how you had sex, and that's what it was. That was what we learned from. That was our sex education, was Swank and Cherry and Penthouse and all the stuff we'd find in the dad's attic, or the parents' attic. Attic. Been a long day. Yeah, so that's I'm sure the experience a lot of people have had. But where it gets confusing is you had the smut culture, which even in the late 80s, early 90s, when I was coming up as a kid, that stuff was, the internet wasn't quite around yet. So even that stuff was more difficult to come by than now. I don't even know how the Gen Z and all that, where it's just like right out of the gate, it's the most hardcore pornography and degeneracy and just craziness. Anything you want, you could find online. And I don't know how that damages the brain or what that does to people sexually. Does it completely fry their system? I think that might be happening to some degree. So we didn't have that. It was a little more tame. Even the triple X rated stuff. It's not like the stuff you see today, that's for sure. But we got exposed to that. But also, the mainstream culture at the time was this. There was a lot of, like with films, for example, there was a lot of rom-com type movies where, of course, the love or romantic interaction with the characters you'd see in the movie. Of course, it wasn't, graphic, and it wasn't the same as smut films. And even some of the drama films that we would watch and the action movies that I was a big fan of, when there was a love interest with the main character, the hero, it was completely different type of sexual interaction than in smut films and magazines. It was, nowadays it would almost be, it's looked at kind of corny and almost unrealistic and over the top. It's like, it used to be it'd be a lot of just making out and caressing and bodies pressed up against each other so you couldn't really see, genitalia or nipples or anything. And there'd usually be like a bed sheet that would cover, the ass crack and cover up the male parts. The male frontal nudity wasn't a thing. You'd never see that. You'd see a lot of arms and biceps and stuff like that for the women to enjoy these Hollywood love scenes. And yeah, just a lot of making out and stuff. And it was just radically different from what you'd see in smut films, where it was like, close-ups and just a completely different experience. So growing up, and when you're trying to think about how your romantic life and what you're going to do when you do meet someone when you're 18 or old enough to date and have sex, it's like, am I supposed to be like, is it more of the Hollywood scene? Is that real life? Or is what I'm seeing in the smut films on Betamax, is that how you do it? And I think this left a lot of people in my generation confused about sex, and possibly could have been just one of many factors that stopped me psychologically from getting laid until very late. I was a virgin for a prolonged period of time. Now, there were other factors, of course. I had self-esteem issues, and I wasn't the most confident person, wasn't sure of myself. I also wasn't taking care of myself the way I should have. I wasn't as attractive as I could have been. I was maybe a bit lazy, or maybe just confused and not sure about my identity or how to be a more attractive person. I was just kind of caught up in other stuff I was doing and what I was interested in at the time. I kind of expected romance and love to just come automatically. I didn't think there had to be work involved or any luck or anything, but it turns out those things do matter. Timing matters, where you meet someone, how you meet them, what place they are in their life, what their status is. Are they single, looking, emotionally available, all that stuff. And I think I ran into some bad timing, and also, yeah, just going back to the influence of Hollywood films and music and all that. It was like all I thought was needed, that you just needed to find a girl that you were attracted to, and you just had to let her know. You just had to tell her you were interested, and that was it. And she would either say yes or no, and that would be the end of it. And you'd either get it on or you wouldn't. And that's all the knowledge I had, other than seeing it happen in movies. And then, music was always, in the 80s and 90s, it was kind of like, this kind of straightforward, romantic, kind of chivalrous type of stuff. And, I don't know how that affected me. It was almost like simping in a way, but only rock stars could probably get away with that, and they didn't tell me that. you could be all emotional and express your interest and your desire for a woman, and it's supposed to work, but because you'd hear it in songs, and you'd hear songs, breakup songs that men were upset, and all that, and songs about lost love and simping, and that's just kind of how it was. So yeah, there was that confusion, that those two different conflicting views of sex and sexuality. And Hollywood, like I said, it was a different vibe, and there's like other like interesting differences too, like in a lot of like 80s and 90s movies, it was, they always had these over the top kind of scenes where it would almost be too passionate, and and they would do stuff like the guy would pick up the woman, and it would just be so intense they couldn't get their clothes off fast enough. They're really rushing, like panic unzipping of the jeans and like ripping the clothes off, and then like clearing stuff off the kitchen table, just like, and then glasses breaking, and they don't care, and like they're making a big mess. Wine is getting spilt on the carpet. They don't even pay attention to it, and they just start like going at it like rabbits, just heavy making out and all that stuff. And it just, that hasn't played out in my personal life with my sexual experiences. I've had about 20 partners, women, and it was never like that, and it was never like exactly like smut films either. So maybe the truth is in the middle. It's like Hollywood has it wrong, and adult content has it wrong. Because the thing with like adult content, where I discovered later on that it's definitely got that performative aspect to it, and it's not natural, and watching it is probably a lot different than being in it. You have someone right up close filming you. It's under bright lights, which is kind of weird. Most people at least have the lights a little bit dim. I don't like it to be completely dark. That's boring. I like to see what's going on. And I'm sure that's most people. But yeah, just like really bright lights is kind of, you see all the different blemishes and things like that. And just the performative aspect and the pressure that's on you to perform with the camera on. And if you have any self-confidence or insecure about anything on your body, men and women, it's like that's going to be shown and amplified, and thousands, maybe even millions of people are going to see it. So that's in the back of your mind. And just that type of performance and stuff it's just different. I don't think it's for everybody. I think you have to have a certain mentality to do it. And I know a lot of people do it for the money if they can, but most of us can't. We're just all kind of just average. Most of us are just kind of average people. And especially men, it's like, I'm sure there's thousands and thousands of men that would want to be in smut films with certain women, but they're just never going to have that opportunity, because it's a small percentage of guys that get picked for that type of stuff, and it's a even smaller percentage that can perform on a regular basis and actually are comfortable enough to, I guess, do it over and over again and be able to do it. So yeah, I don't know much about that. I don't think I'll ever go that path, even given the opportunity. So that's definitely interesting discussion. Yeah, and then the other side, the Hollywood stuff, of course, is kind of like veiled and masked in a different way to make it more palatable and PG friendly. It's really edited a lot heavily, so it can be consumed by the masses. You don't want to, the reality of a sexual experience, some of the more unflattering things that can happen during it. It doesn't make for a sexy love scene in a movie if you were to make it realistic. So you got to make it like a fantasy. Yeah, and it's just different. Like, and even the terms were different. Like, I know, boomers and stuff, they used to call it like making love, and I don't even think people use that term. I mentioned Bobby Brown before, and I just heard that I like listening to the old soul music, like old R&B hip hop, like the black artists from the 70s and 80s and early 90s is a channel on Sirius XM. And I heard Bobby Brown. It was like that rollin' rock, making sweet love, don't you ever stop. And all the songs back then were about making love. And we all know what that means. But then like in the music videos and stuff, it would be like that kind of rolling around, making out, caressing, kind of like that really slow paced stuff that's not really what you experience when you have sex with your partner. So yeah, maybe real life is kind of in between. Maybe it's a happy medium between smut films and Hollywood films. But yeah, I think that's what caused a lot of confusion when you were consuming both of these things, especially as a young, impressionable man. You didn't know what was reality and what was fantasy. And it turns out both of those platforms or mediums that you were consuming this stuff were both wrong. And that could be part of the reason why you started seeing higher and higher virginity rates, or men losing their virginity later and later as time went on. Because I'm almost a millennial, so I'm sure maybe Gen X was the first where it started to kind of increase, like that rate of, I guess the first generation to experience virginity for longer and longer periods of time, and then it just went up and up. Millennials even more, now Gen Z, like crazy like rates of virginity, like over half or even more are still virgins in their mid to late 20s already. So and I think like in the boomer generation, they just figured things out without all these different influences. It was more of like a natural thing. They just kind of met when they were a little bit younger and just hooked up, and there wasn't social media. There wasn't a lot of films that had sexually charged material. There are obviously love stories since the beginning of Hollywood. So I think it was easier for the boomers. They just kind of met in their community and hooked up, and that was it. And they weren't bombarded or sent all these mixed messages and had all this smut that was contaminating their mind, and also the unrealistic fantasies of some of the later Hollywood films of the 80s and 90s. So I just thought that was interesting, and just an angle that I hadn't explored before, because I always go back to thinking, like, why was I a virgin for so long? And could I have done something different? What was kind of like psychoanalyzing myself just for the hell of it, just for shits and giggles. And I just wanted to share that with you, to see if you were in the same boat, if you had that same experience, those conflicting things. And that evolved too, like as I guess as like the 80s went into the 90s, there were like more groundbreaking films where it got closer to the smut, even in Hollywood films. Like you have like maybe Basic Instinct or something like that, which pushed the edge as far as like Hollywood theatrical, like just a regular R-rated movie. And the scenes were like more intense, but they were still in that kind of unrealistic, over the top, uh, with the passion and desire, and it's almost just like too much tension that you wouldn't really experience in real life. I mean, they even had the thing where in that movie, it was like the fear of death. Like, am I going to get killed during this experience? Because I don't know if this woman I'm rolling around with is a psycho killer or not. And that was part of the kink in that movie. And then, yeah, things got crazier as time went on, and you had these like kink movies and inspired by true crime and all that kind of stuff. And then 50 Shades of Grey more recently. So yeah, very interesting, very complex things to think about and explore. And and as far as this generation, I can't even imagine, like, if I was experiencing confusion sexually and trying to figure out what to do as I became an adult, as I finished my puberty, adolescence. I can't even imagine what it's like now, as I mentioned, with the smut on the internet, and that combined with the social media and all the other mixed messaging. And you have like red pill community, you have feminism, they're competing, and you have some of like the most degenerate, off the wall kind of unrealistic stuff on the internet that young men are being exposed to, and they're thinking that's what sex is. And if they're going to be emulating that type of stuff and just creating a horrific experience for the woman, or young women, or are they consuming this stuff too, and now they are being influenced to, they see this stuff and they think, oh my god, I have to act like these girls I see on OnlyFans or on these smut videos. That's what sex is, and it's just completely degenerate, hardcore stuff. And are they going to be brainwashed into, what is it, first date, and they're going to be doing, like, yeah, see, that's a problem. I'd like to really express myself and be graphic just to get my point across here, but maybe you could read between the lines what I'm trying to get at here, not keeping this video family friendly. Yeah, let's just say, the categories you see on these websites, these smut sites, and then emulating the most extreme stuff you see on there on like a first date, because that's the norm now. That, well, this must be sex. This is what I see on the internet. I guess that's what a first date is now. Yeah. Very interesting. Definitely not the world I grew up in. There was at least some innocence, but I think that's when innocence started to be lost, when we discovered magazines in the woods, or in my friend's dad's treehouse, the Betamax tapes, and we were teenagers watching this stuff. That was probably the beginning of the end. And our psyches and our path and our trajectory towards love and romance and a happy life was probably disturbed. And it is what it is. And, not much you could do about that now. And a lot's happened since then, of course. I have had real life experiences and a little bit of success here and there with the opposite sex. And definitely not a virgin, definitely a little bit above average when it comes to the quantity of partners. But yet I still have not been in a serious relationship. And I'm in my mid 40s now, single, no girlfriend, no prospects even. It's, like I said in other videos, it's an even more confusing and difficult, challenging time for men. And I'm sure most of you understand that. And I'm glad you are watching this and watching other similar content, learning, trying to grow from it. And yeah, never, well, I shouldn't say never. I mean, to each his own. You can decide what you want to do, if you want to keep pursuing romance, or if you feel it's not worth it and you've turned that page and that chapter in your life is done. You just want to focus on other things and you just want to reminisce or explore the psychology of what's happening with men and women and sex and the modern world. That's also fun, and it's also valuable to expand your knowledge and learn from other people's experiences and share your own, like I'm doing here. I'm just sharing my thoughts and my experience. And yeah, first generation to be sexually confused, in my opinion. Could be wrong. Maybe boomers had confusion as well. That was kind of like the sexual revolution, that maybe that's where things changed, where feminism started, and maybe they were responsible. They started creating and producing smut and producing the stuff we see in Hollywood. So that was all boomers. The stuff I was consuming was created by boomers because I was, or either that or old Gen X, like the first generation X. Either way, it's because I was a teenager in the 90s. So yeah, that's just how it was. That's kind of how it timed out. So yeah, it's been crazy and crazy time to be alive. The last 40 years, all of the different changes and revolutions, evolutions in sex and society, and kind of exciting to be a part of. I'm sure from like maybe 1900 to like 1940 or 50, it was pretty stale and boring. It was all the same kind of thing. There wasn't like film media or a lot of music or anything like that to influence us or entertain us. Life was kind of simple, boring, arguably better that it was simple and more peaceful and boring. You just had your partner and you had kids and you lived off the land and you were just grateful to God you had a meal on the table at the end of the day, and that was a successful life. Now it's gotten way, way, way too complicated, and it's just getting worse and worse, and we're all having, especially my age, we're having more and more difficult time navigating this stuff and handling what's coming at us so quickly. And like I say, I can't imagine how crazy it must be to be a Gen Z and to live in this type of confusion. So anyways, that's all I have on this topic. Thank you for watching. Please hit the subscribe button if you are new. It helps me grow. It's free. It's easy. Hit the notification bell. Thumbs up. Give me a like on this video. I also accept super thanks if you really want to help, along with PayPal donation link. If you want to throw me a few bucks some beer money so Denny the Bachelor can enjoy his weekend a little bit more, unwind, unplug from the stress of the week. That would be appreciated too. Thank you, fellas, and thank you, ladies, for watching. I hope you find this valuable too, because, you know, we're all in this together, to be cliche and corny, but that's how it is. Let's try to get along. Let's try to work together. Cooperation and faith in God, and put your best foot forward and don't put your foot in your mouth. Thank you once again. God bless you. Peace. We'll see you on the next one. Denny, bye-bye.